Hello.
Hi, Alexei.
Yeah, can you tell us a few words about yourself and about the tool you want to show us?
Sure. My name is Arun. First of all, thanks a lot for having me. So I'm Arun. I'm currently the CTO of Castle Data. I have around 11 plus years of experience in the software industry, and you can say around 4 plus years of experience in the data space. I was an early engineer in some very early stage startups like Media IQ Hemo Data, which is an ETL solution. And I also worked in some pretty big organization as well, right? So you can imagine that I have a bit of both worlds. Yeah. And regarding Castled, the tool that I'm going to demo today. So Castled is an open source reverse ETL solution. And I think reverse ETL is a kind of pretty new concept in the data space. So I'll try to explain that a bit. Right. So what has happened in the last couple of years is that like tens of thousands of modern data driven organizations have started moving the data from their different data silos into their cloud data warehouse. They have realized the value of the cloud data warehouses, and they have accepted the cloud data warehouse as a single source of truth. Right. So now basically what happened is that your cloud data warehouse is the only place in your entire data stack which contains what you can say like a 360-degree view of your customer or your product. Right. Everything is data silos, and the data warehouse has the complete view. Right. And then that particular view was used to power this what do you call reporting dashboards. Right. And then the reports were used to made out of those insights which was generated in the cloud data warehouse, and it was being so those reports were used by the business leaders of your organization to kind of make long-term roadmaps, right? They can actually figure out what is going well with the company, what is not going well, and based on that, they can decide, they can act on that and decide some course corrections. So that is how the data analysis has been happening for the last 2 years, right? So why reverse ETL? All is well and good, right? The data is getting analyzed, it's getting fed to the business leaders. But what about your operational teams, right? Your business teams, like your sales team, your marketing team, your support team, who is actually interacting with customers on a daily basis, right? They should also kind of get this customer insights, right? Currently they're not getting it. They are, getting partial view of the customer uh, from tools like say Zapier or MuleSoft, right? But they're not getting the data from the customer data warehouse, and that is where what the actual everything else is data. In whatever is there in the cloud data warehouse, these are insights, right? So that is why so people started realizing the importance of armoring your business teams with customer or product insights from your cloud data warehouse, and that is where reverse ETL comes in. Reverse ETL syncs your customer or product insights from your cloud data warehouse into the tools which your operational teams rely on, like Salesforce, HubSpot, Google Ads, Intercom, etc.
Yeah. So did I understand correctly? So first, let's say we have Google Ads. So ETL would be taking data from Google Ads and putting this to data warehouse, and reverse ETL would be taking data from a data warehouse and putting it back to Google Ads, right?
I'll not put it that way. You're not getting the data from Google Ads alone. You're getting the data from like
Yes.
40 different places, right? Because
Mhm.
a modern, like a mid-scale organization uses around 40 such apps, right? So you're getting the data from, you can say that you're joining the data between Salesforce, HubSpot, Intercom, and the joint insights is what is being fed back to the tools.
Mhm. Clear. And the tool that you will show us actually helps with moving data back from a data warehouse to these tools, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to see it.
Okay, sure. So I'll share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen. Something
Got
is
it.
running on localhost 3000.
Yeah. So actually, it is our application which is running on localhost. So I've already started the application, but it's totally completely open source. If some of you want to kind of run this application on your local, we have a Docker image as well. You can just do a Docker compose up, and then it will get started on your application within a minute, right? But I'll skip that. I'm already running that on my local, so I'll jump right into the demo. So I'll tell you one use case that we are trying to solve here. There are numerous use cases of reverse ETL, but the use case that we are trying to solve here is that there is a company whose marketing team wants to target a segment of users who are not in a particular user tier, right? I'll kind of so this is my Snowflake data warehouse, right? It contains two tables, right? First table is a contacts table, which contains information about all their customers. It contains the first name, last name, email, the company name, and the category. And there is another table called a subscription table. It contains the subscription. I mean, it contains information about the subscription a particular user is in. Like, so the Bruce Wine is in user type free, right? Jane is on user type free. Serena is on user type pro, right? So now what the marketing team of this organization wants to do is they want to create a segment of users who are not in user tier enterprise, right? They want to maybe do some kind of upselling, right? So how do they get the data? They can just run this query, right? They can join contacts and subscription, and then you put the condition that if the subscription tier is not enterprise, right? So I'll just run this query for you guys, right? You can see here that you joined the table. It is kind of joining the fields from both the tables, and I've filtered out the entries which are in enterprise tier, right? So now this is the data that we want to move to HubSpot, right? On a daily basis, right? So what I'll show you how to do that.
What is HubSpot? It's
Yeah,
like CRM.
yeah, it's a CRM. It's a marketing CRM, right? So you can see here, this is my HubSpot, right? And there is an object, there is a contacts object. This contains all the, so normally the campaigns kind of use this contacts to target users, right? So we have to move the data to this object. Right now it has 0 records. It doesn't have any entry. So well, I'll just start creating a pipeline now. Okay, so this is our homepage, right? You can just go inside, and here you can see all the data warehouses that we support. So we support Redshift, Snowflake, Postgres, right? We plan to support a lot more in the coming months, but right now we have these 4, right? So I'll click on Snowflake. So I already configured the Snowflake instance here for the sake of the demo. But if you want to create a new warehouse, it's pretty straightforward. You can just go inside and enter your credentials, and then click on submit, and a new warehouse will get created. So for this thing, I'm just using the warehouse which I already created. Right, I go inside, and now there is a place to enter your query, right? The results of which you want to sync it to HubSpot. So which is this query. So I'll just select that query and I'll just run it here. It'll show you a preview, right? Just to make sure that the data which you want to sync is correct. So now we have seen the data. Now it looks okay. So I'm just moving forward with it. Okay, so now in this screen, I have to select the destination where I want to sync the data to. We support 14 destinations right now. So I'll just select HubSpot. Again, if you want to create a new app, you just have to enter the name, and you have to create an OAuth app in HubSpot, and it'll give you a client ID and client secret. You just have to put it here, and then you can save and continue. It will create a new app, right? But I already have configured that, so I'll just use that. Okay, so now this comes a page. This page we call as an app sync settings. So this contains additional parameters that you require to sync the data to your HubSpot destination. For instance, we want to say that which is the object to which we want to sync the data to. In this case, we want to move the data to contact, like you showed here. We want to move the data here. So we selected contact, and then we'll have to select something which you call as a sync mode. So what is the sync mode? Sync mode decides how an incoming record will be synced to your destination, right? Whether it will just do a blind insert, or say if the record already, say a user record is coming in, and the same user with the same email already exists on HubSpot, right? What do you want to do with it? Do you want to just insert a new entry, or you want to update the existing entry, right? So that is what it decides, right? So the difference between update and upsert is that upsert, right? So a new user record is coming in, and the record already exists on the destination. Upsert will update it. If it doesn't exist on the destination, it will create a new entry. That's why it's called upsert. But in case of update, if it is already there, it will update it. But if it is not there, it will skip it. It will not do anything, right? And it's a very common use case. Update is also a very common sync mode which people use. Right? For the sake of the demo, I'll use upsert. I'll move forward. I'll continue. Okay. So now we reach the mapping page. So mapping page is the place where we have to map the incoming query fields to the destination fields. We have to say that email should be mapped to email on the destination, right? So these are the query fields, and this is the destination fields. You have to kind of select the destination fields from a drop down. So now I say first name should be mapped to first name, last name should be mapped to last name. I have also created a couple of custom properties in HubSpot called usage tier and feature. So I'll use that also. Yes, I've done the mapping. So now what I have to do is I have to select something called a primary key. So primary key is what uniquely identifies a record. So if you see in the previous screen, we have selected something called a sync mode, right? So if the sync mode is say absurd, so we need to figure out key this record and the other record is same, right? And you kind of need some kind of primary kind of a identifying key to match it. So that is what we have to give here, right? So in case of HubSpot, email is an identifier. And we say that this user is like similar to the another user if the email matches, right? So I select the primary key, I do continue. So now we come to the final page where I just have to name the pipeline. I'll say Snowflake to HubSpot demo. And then I'll have to select a couple more things. So you see something called a query mode here, right? So this is where reverse ETL is actually pretty useful, because reverse ETL by default, it just gets the incremental records from your warehouse on every pipeline run. Say there are 100 million records that you synced in the first pipeline run, and next time when the pipeline runs, only say 5 records have changed, we just fetch the 5 records. Right? This is absolutely critical because some of the destinations that we support, like say Salesforce, HubSpot, they have a lot of resource constraints. They have a lot of API limits, right, and other stuff. So we cannot like sync 100 million records every time. I mean, that is not practical. So so that is why we have 2 query modes, incremental and full load. In full load, we get every pipeline run, we fetch all the query results and sync it to destination, right? So this is actually useful in case of destinations like say Kafka, Google PubSub, right, where you can afford to kind of sync so much of data, like 100 million records every hour, you can afford to sync, right? But other CRMs, I mean, you have to go with the incremental mode, right? And then we have to select the pipeline schedule. This decides how frequently you want the pipeline to run. So if you want to run it real time, you can even like make it 5 minutes, right? Every 5 minutes it will run, it will look for deltas and it'll sync it to the destination. Right, so I'm going to make it 5 minutes for now, and I'm going to do create pipeline. Okay, so now it is trying to sync the data from Snowflake back to HubSpot. So we'll wait for it to complete. It will take a few seconds.
So it executes this query, and then it sees everything that was not yet inserted or updated, so things that are new, right? And then it will decide what to do with them, either create a new record or update existing ones, right? And then it looks at this delta and then sends requests to HubSpot, right?
That's exactly correct. And so now the data sync is complete. Now, if you go to contacts object here, you should be able to see all those 6 records. Now, our marketing team can run campaigns targeting these users, right? I just want to demonstrate one more small thing, right? I want to show the delta, right? So now there are 6 records. So because the first pipeline run, it synced all the 6 records. Now I want to kind of demonstrate the delta, right? Say one more user gets added to the table. Right? So I'm just adding a new contact called Big Mike. He is in Buy More. So I'm just adding his record here. Right. So now if I run this query, it has one more entry, right? So there are 6 records earlier. Now there are 7. Right. So now say like, a new record got added to the warehouse, and next time when the pipeline runs, right? So next pipeline run will happen after 5 minutes. Yeah. So, but I don't want to wait for 5 minutes. So I'll just run it now. I can do a sync now. So it will start running again. Right. So now if you see now, it will just fetch the one record which got changed and not the entire record. So it will complete in a few seconds. Yeah, so it's done now. So you see that it has synced only one record now. And if you go back to contacts, you'll be able to see Big Mike here.
And what happens if you delete a record?
Yeah, so that is a feature that we are implementing in the next, actually that is something we are working on right now. It will be done in a week or so, right? So currently we don't handle deletes now, but it is something that we are actually working on. I think we'll probably have that in a week or 2.
And the behavior in this case will be that this record is removed from HubSpot, right?
Correct. Because the marketing team don't want to target a user who is not in that particular list, right? So I mean, it doesn't have to be a
Let's say
delete.
they upgraded, right?
Correct, correct,
Or not upgraded, but yeah, I guess if it upgraded, then it is removed from the result set, right? The
correct,
user is no
correct,
longer there.
correct, correct.
It should also be removed from HubSpot.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. So it's not like a physical delete. Even if it kind of falls out of the scope of the query, you still want to delete it.
Clear. Okay,
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. And what is the throughput for this stick? I assume it's not, you cannot insert a lot of data at one go, right? So there is
yeah,
some
yeah.
limitation coming up from HubSpot.
Yeah, so I mean, so the limitations are always imposed by your destination APIs, right? Your data warehouse doesn't have any limitations. We have even tried 100 million records, even billion records, right? So the delta computation, even though it looks like extremely expensive, it is actually not, right? Mostly it is your destination APIs. If you're trying to move 100 million records, it might take some time because your destination APIs are limited. But we still make the best effort to make it as fast as possible by adding some kind of parallelism to it, but we have to be very careful about I mean, we should be very careful that if we add too many parallelism, right, it should not affect the reliability. So we have to kind of strike a balance between the two.
And then it also depends on exact destination, right? So some might throttle you earlier and
Yeah,
limit you, say, okay, you're sending too many queries, but for some,
yeah.
they can just take all this load, right?
Although we handle that also, right? For instance, if we see that the rate limits are hit, we automatically rate right depending on the destination. Say Salesforce has a rate limit of 15,000 requests per day. So maybe like if that we see the rate limit, right? We don't try the pipeline. We try the pipeline after say 24 hours, right? We know that even if we try now, nothing is going to happen. Right? So we kind of handle that also. Yeah.
And how many people are working on it?
Yeah, so right now we have a team of around, so there are 10 contributors in the open source community who are actively contributing to it. Yeah, but we kind of want to grow our more community more. We just started on the open source a couple of months back. So we're just growing our community now, but right now there are 10 people.
Okay, so this is a 2 months old project?
No, not really. I mean, so we open sourced
So it
it
was
around,
closed sourced before. Okay,
yeah,
clear.
so it was there. I mean, we open sourced it just, I think around November types.
Okay. Well, it's still pretty impressive
Yeah.
what you have done. And how can people contribute? So if somebody wants to contribute to the project, how do they do this?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, we have this open source repo here, so we can just fork it, and then so we also have documentation about how to write a new connector, right? I mean, we have made a framework in such a way that it is very easy to write a connector, right? We have the framework does all the heavy lifting, and if you want to write a destination connector, you just have to figure out the APIs and then hit it, and then there are the errors. You have to kind of send it back to the framework. So I mean, we have even I mean, if you go to the README, you will understand how to start on localhost, and then how to write a new connector, source connector, destination connector. So README, I mean, you can fork this repo and you can start contributing.
So you need mostly help with connectors, right? Or you
Yeah,
also need
yeah.
help, let's say, fixing bugs and other core
I mean,
functionalities.
that is also there, but I mean, obviously, ideally, we would want to target. So basically, eventually, we would want to build like tens of thousands of connectors, right? That's the number of apps that we want to build. And if it is totally in-house, I think that that is not scalable, right? We want the community to kind of help us out and build those connectors, right? We'll also be, I mean, our internal team will also be actively working on it, but a community contribution can take this to the next level.
Mhm. Was it the main reason for deciding to go open source to be able to scale to
Yeah,
a
correct.
lot of connectors?
Right. So we have been
It makes
working on this for like more than a year, right? So, but then we
Mhm.
realized that we have to build tens of thousands of connectors. And how do you build tens of thousands of connectors? I mean, unless it's open source.
Yeah. Or you have an army of developers, right?
Yeah, yeah, correct.
Okay. And what are your plans? What do you want to do next, like in the immediate future, let's say next 3 months?
Yeah, correct. I mean, so we have a plan. So in the next 2 months, what we want to build around 10 more connectors. And I mean, connector catalog is our bread and butter. And in the next 6 months, we want to take the number of connectors to around 50 connectors, right? And on the product side, we want to build one of the things that we want to build is a delete feature that you are asking. I think a lot of people were asking for that, right? Because delete feature is important. That's one thing which you're actually working on right now. Other thing is we want to build some this feature called models, right? For instance, if you have seen that we have entered this query there, right? So now I mean there's no way to reuse the query, right? I mean normally queries are like 8-page queries, so every time you create a pipeline, even if it's the same query, you have to enter the same query. So we are going to introduce a feature called models where you can create a query and save it as a model. So next time when you come in, you don't have to write the query. You can just select the existing model. So that is another thing which our customers are asking for. And the third feature is we want to integrate with DBT, right? So instead of writing a query, I think everybody keeps their queries on DBT models. So we would want to integrate with that so that we can take the queries from there. So these are kind of things that we are working on like a short term.
Yeah, great. Do you have any advice for anyone who's watching this?
I mean, yeah, do check out our, I mean, not advice, but do check out our repo. And we have made it in such a way that it will be extremely useful for you, right? You want to kind of run it on your on premise, right? You can use it for free. I mean, it will be pretty useful for you. And I mean, if you can contribute back to us, that will be extremely helpful.
And I guess you also wouldn't mind people starting your repo, right? How
Yeah,
many
yeah,
stars
please.
do you have?
We have
How many stars
260,
do you have?
260.
Yeah, I think, yeah, please go and start it because I think the amount of work you put there, uh, yeah, it's a lot. So please
Yeah,
go and put a star there.
yeah, please do that. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you want to mention before we wrap up?
No, nothing. I mean, thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah, it was nice. Thanks a lot for joining us today, for showing the demo. That's an amazing thing you're working on, and yeah, thanks a lot.
Cool. Thanks, Alexei.
Yeah.
Bye.
And bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.